Okay guys, so here's the next thing that I'm trying. So I went the DRP route and it created the DRP files, and what I was thinking originally was that I could drag my DRP files once they were rendered back into my other project that I had everything else in it. But that didn't seem to work. When I tried to grab the DRP file, it opened up basically that sole project, which was just rendering each proto out separately. So that didn't do me any favors. So now I am trying the render in place, where I'm hoping I did it right. Basically, I'm rendering them in MP4 and I'm sending them to my folder that my shows are in, which I'm not sure if that's correct or not. You might have to send them somewhere else, but I don't know. Either way, it looks like I can actually, on the ones that were already rendered down here, so you could actually see what's going on now, whereas before it was just this blue block because it wasn't rendered. So I'm hoping, with that being said, when I go to finally render this thing, because I tried to re-render it again and it gets stuck at like 11% and it shows me over an hour, but that's me going to the gym, going shopping, coming back, and it was still only on 11%. So that wasn't working. This Proto V2 is just insanely powerful, and I mean, this is a gaming laptop, so it's not slow by any means, but when you put like 3 or 4 of those Proto V2s into an equation, it really chokes the system out, especially when they're kind of like on top of each other, maybe, and they're not like just dragged out like each one separately. So this thing's trying to, I guess, render them all kind of at the same time, because they're all going to be running at the same time. So because they're on the different layers. But I'm going to see if rendering these out, which each one of them is taking maybe about 6 or 7 minutes to render, which is still a hell of a lot better than what I've been going through. So if this works, I'll basically post an update on that. But that's where I am right now. I'm doing the last one, so hopefully when I go to render this out, it should, and I'm hoping it should, render this thing completely, because this show is under 5 minutes, so it shouldn't be taking that long. A lot of my other shows were like 18, 14 minutes, and those were insane, and they took a lot less time rendering without this Proto V2 effect. So let's see what happens. Okay guys, so that is actually working. It whipped right through those render in place V2s, which was insane. I can't believe how fast it actually went through them. So now it's rendering this thing probably, it only took like maybe 5 minutes to get through this whole thing rendering now. So it does actually work to render in place, especially when you're using V2s or Proto V2s for Davinci Resolve, because these things actually absorb a ton of power. So the 6 minutes or so that it takes to render in place each one is well worth the hassle of trying to render this thing all out at the very end. And I'm sure somebody like Robert McLean or somebody probably already explained this tutorial on that render in place feature, how it really speeds up the final render. But until I do something, sometimes it doesn't really click. So listening to somebody, sometimes I'm like, But I've heard that render in place before. Should have actually tried it earlier than this, but now I know. So I do have to fix the V2s, because right now I have them layered on top of each other. So when one gets to the other point where the other one starts, it cuts off the first one, which I must have screwed that one up. I probably should have 3D layered it, or not 3D layered, but 3D keyed it, so it basically would show both of them versus cutting off, which I didn't even think about. So I got some modifications I need to do to it, but at least I know now what I did wrong. And like I said, this thing is going to take a matter of probably about 6 minutes to completely render the whole thing, which was giving me hours and hours of time before. So okay, so here I'm re-rendering again. I added the 3D keyer, and it shows FX on here, which shows that it should have the 3D keyer added to it. I re-rendered all the other ones, and the 3D keyer for some reason came out of it. So it rendered them normally, which is basically what I didn't want. Without the 3D keyer, you can't see everything. So I'm trying again, and I verified that FX is showing up, and we're going to see if rendering in place, if this is actually going to work, or if it's going to remove the 3D keyer while I'm rendering this. We'll see. Okay, so I don't know if that's a glitch or not, but this one just finished. Look what's missing, the FX. So that means, once again, it took out the 3D keyer after I rendered in place. Not sure why it's doing that. What I might do is try to save this program or close it down once I have the 3D keyer set up, reopen it, and see if that saves it. I don't know if this is a glitch or not, but yeah, if you render in place and you add a 3D keyer or maybe even any effect to it, it seems like it's pulling it out. It's not actually leaving it in, because when I went to play this, before, when I rendered all of them, it did the exact same thing as if I forgot to put the 3D keyer in. I know I didn't, and now this is proof, because the 3D keyer is now missing. Okay guys, so after a lot of trial and error, I finally got it to work. Now, this is working. I'm not really crazy about how it came out, but in any case, adding the 3D keyer and then rendering regularly pretty much doubled the time. So I was at like maybe 7-ish minutes, 6 or 7-ish minutes, when I rendered the Proto 2s in place and rendered the whole thing. It took about six or so minutes. When I added the 3D keyer and then rendered it out, it took about 15 minutes. So I'm not sure why Proto V2 was kicking out the 3D keyer. Don't know, it must be some kind of glitch or not between them not communicating with Davinci Resolve versus Proto 2. I don't know, but in any case, I got it to work, and thus far, like I said, it did speed up the time, because I was, like I said, all night long, and I only ended up, I think the highest I got was like 19%, and this is only like maybe a 5-minute video. So with that being said, that was way too long. You can see how simple the video is too. It's mostly just pictures that I keyframed for some animation, and there isn't a lot of complexity to this thing. So I like making these videos because they're pretty quick to do. You can kick them out, and basically you're just removing the backgrounds from pictures that you find online. So very easy to do, very quick to do, but when you start adding the Proto 2 effect in there for Davinci Resolve uses, it just threw a loop into things. Like I said, still not crazy about the way it looks, but hey, it is what it is, and I'll try to work with it the most I can. But hopefully that helps you if you want to speed up some time on your renders and stuff. That rendering in place really works. So make sure that if you have a video that your computer's struggling with or whatever like that, if you have a lot of animation or whatever you're doing, render that stuff out first, and then you should save yourself a ton of time. So hopefully that helps, guys, and hopefully everybody's ready for Christmas and getting their Christmas stuff ready, so we all can have excellent little shows to present to our neighbors. All right, till then, peace out.